Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Patrick Fairon, who's currently a serial entrepreneur. He's also founder of his own nonprofit, and he's been a serial entrepreneur since the 90s. Now, Patrick, can you tell me more about your background and what led you to start becoming an entrepreneur in the first place?
Well, thanks for inviting me to your podcast. I appreciate that. And I think where I could start is just my youth growing up in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. My father was an immigrant and was very entrepreneurial. So at a very young age, I was kind of pushed out of the house, go figure it out. My father being Belgium, me being first generation, they do things a little different in Europe when, how they push their kids. But I benefited from that because my dad definitely pushed me in the right direction in terms of figuring it out on your own. You want to make money, go out there and figure out what you can do to make that money and then do it. And then don't come home until lights come, the street lights turn off. So, growing up in that feral type of 80s environment, I think was conducive for young people to get out there and just start doing stuff and making money.
Yeah. And what kind of student were you?
I was a decent student. I was fortunate. My dad, based on the 70s oil embargo and crash and some IRS changes really affected his business at the time. So he lost everything in the 70s, moved us up from, believe it or not, Seal Beach, California to Texas. So I did my junior high in Texas.
Okay.
So, I was introduced to a whole different level of aggression, growing up in Texas at junior high and started playing football and stuff like that. So from 5th grade to 8th grade, I lived in Texas. Then he moved us back here to California. So, but growing up at that period of time in Texas, it was very insightful and it was great for me. But yeah, that's where I kind of started mowing lawns, delivering paper. I don't care what it was. At 11, 12, 13 years old, I was going to go out there and hustle.
Did you always want to do that? I mean, most kids don't do that at 10 or 11. They're busy with the iPad now. But at those days also, they probably weren't doing that either.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a life without a phone, and an iPad or any of that, and I remember in 91 getting my first, what they called beepers, but, pagers. So I really went through that early iterations of technology as an entrepreneur. But in Texas in the 80s, just growing up, you didn't have any of that, right? So you had that ability to get out there and experiment and do things. And you can make money, back in the day where, knocking on someone's door wasn't a scary thing. Everyone kind of knew everyone. And in Texas, a very neighbor friendly, community we grew up in. So it was easier back then, I think, as a younger person to get out there and mix it up because it was a little, it seemed safer and you could just kind of go knock doors and not worry about getting snatched.
Yeah. And I'm curious. So you started your career as an entrepreneur in the 90s. I mean, what were you doing before that specifically? Because we were just talking about you in high school, of course, and a much younger version of yourself. But tell me more about did you do college? How did that work?
Yeah, my father really, by the time I was in 8th grade, he took that approach like you're on your own. If you want anything for school, you want cleats, you want a Letterman jacket, I don't care. You got to go figure it out, go make the money and really kind of me and my 3 brothers, he really pushed us in that way to be independent, to get out there and make it happen. So, throughout high school, I ended up, and I was a little taller as a younger person. So in 8th grade, I hit like 6'2". Going into a freshman year, I was 6'3". So I was taller and I was quiet, so I could kind of get away with being older. So I got busing jobs when I was in 8th grade summer leading into my freshman year. And by the time my late freshman year, I became a waiter because I was able to lie about my age, and I started waiting tables as a freshman in high school. And so through my high school career, I just was in the restaurant industry, and it, with tips, it was a great way to make money. And plus I played football. I was brought up as a sophomore into the varsity. So like for me, being completely over encumbered in time and busy with work, having to fend for myself, and then wanting to play football and be, part of that high school experience, really was what kind of started that just neurotic, impulsive, just need to work, need to build, need to grow attitude. Yeah.
Okay. So transition that to the 90s when you became the entrepreneur you are today, right? Well, when you first started out, like what was that decision making process, and what were you doing before that?
Well, I graduated and I knew I wasn't a college guy, and I knew I wasn't going to play any real level of football. Even being at the time I was pretty big. I was like 205 pounds as a free safety and 6'3". You would think I'd just walk on to any college. No, I was not very fast. I could hit. I could run through walls. I didn't feel pain normally, but I wasn't very fast, and I wasn't going to make it. So I went to one tryout at a junior college, and literally walked off that campus saying, you know what, I'm not that guy. So I started just kind of, I was at that time, believe it or not, I was bartending and bouncing at 19. Knowing I didn't want to go to college, knowing I wanted to do something more to make money, but not knowing what that was. So just kind of surfing, working out, and bartending, which was very fun, in my, 1920. And then through bartending, I met an entrepreneur that recruited me. He thought I was 25, and I think once he found out I was just 20. So at an early age, I met an entrepreneur who kind of recruited me. I showed up that Monday with 5 other young men. By Friday, the other 4 had quit. I hung in there, and it happened to be in finance. It was a commercial, industrial, residential brokerage, if you will. Back in the early 90s, you didn't really need to have licensing and stuff. Yeah. So I didn't know what the hell that they were talking about. I just knew that he was driving a Mercedes. He was like 27. He just, got here 3 years ago, lived in Maine, and like just painted the picture of success right off the bat, sucked me right in. I'm like, if that guy can do it, I can do it. Right. So, hence post Anthony Robbins walking the coals. So I, even at 1920, I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what that was yet. And this gentleman gave me an opportunity. I showed up, and I never just kind of gave up, and hated the industry for a while because it was so much, just real estate in general, just learning, let alone commercial, industrial, residential. So right at 21, I was in finance, learning as much as I could as a knucklehead,
and what was your role?
Like a junior originator, sales, get out there. And, back then there wasn't the internet, there was no website. So you literally went out in the field and you shook hands, and, you went to different commercial shops, and you just I knocked thousands of industrial commercial doors to see if I can help them finance. Yeah. So
you're not talking. You're not talking about apartments, but rather you're talking about actual like shops, shopping centers, retail stores, and office space. Is that what you're referring to?
All 3 sectors. I in my early finance career, residential was predominant, but industrial, commercial. For me, it was really, I wanted my clients to come to me if they needed money. So I was kind of brought in that with that referral mentality in terms of building strategic relationships in various industries. So even back in the mid 90s, I would market and I would solicit family attorneys, because they'd be the one that when a couple breaks up, they need to sell the house. So I could refer that over to a broker. I could do the finance. So I was just always trying to connect people together and be the middleman and make revenue through that relationship. So brought in very much under that kind of old school selling, face-to-face, knocking doors. Referral-based business, and then it just kind of grew upon itself, and brought in a partner in the late 90s, and got punched a couple times with liquidity crashes and crunches back in 1998, back in 94. Obviously, we had 9/11 hit. I lost probably 100 loans. That was at Bear Stearns in one of the buildings. So when you go through all that, and you're just
commercial real estate,
commercial and residential.
Because I think it was during the 9/11, right? Subsequently, was it commercial real estate in regards to office space and retail that got the most affected, or is it all across the board?
Actually, at that time, I was building a residential. I was more on the residential side. I was a full broker. I think by 2020 or 2004, we were in 43 states. Lending predominantly residential, because that was the easier path to some real revenue, and then more of a boutique on the commercial industrial through my own clientele and through the organization's clientele. But we got up to about 250 employees at about, in late 2005. But that was an interesting time too, because right before the big financial crisis, I had gone through 1994 and I had gone through 1998 where there was liquidity gaps where liquidity just stopped for certain product types. So I was stung by that and financially hurt and had to readjust. So walking into 2005, looking at what was being lent at the time, I knew it wasn't going to end well. So sure enough, put the company up for sale. I owned a company. I think I can talk about it now because it's been so long, but under NDAs. But I own loannow.com back in the 2000s. So loannow.com, I ended up exiting, not for any real money because it was in 2006. It was literally a quarter before 2007 when that mortgage-backed security bomb went off, and subsequent 2008 was when it started. 2009 and 10 was the deep recession. So having gone through all of that, you just kind of, you get some alligator skin in you with regards to being able to lose everything and then starting over again. Because even though I sold the company, what I had in liabilities, because we had grown so fast, so quickly, I couldn't strip down quick enough to profit from the sale. So I was basically bailed out, if you will, sold the company. And then 4 or 5 months later, this larger company out of Texas called us up and said, we're shutting everything down nationwide. So 35,000 employees gone. But it was great for me because I was let loose of the NDA, and I was chained with this organization for 3 years. And so I was able to kind of restart in 2008 and 9.
Yeah. And subsequently, I see that you were basically the incubation CEO and CTO and CIO for America's Funding Group. Tell me more about that situation. I know that it probably hits closer to home from what I've understood. So tell me more about that and kind of how you proceeded with your career from that point.
Well, America's Funding Group was a project that I was incubating with my younger brother, who was my partner of 20 plus years, a little over a year apart. So kind of Indian twins, if you will. He was an amazing person. He passed away in 2019. So I had started AFG for my younger brother, and in 2015 we were able to launch in late 2000 or mid 2016. Started ramping up in 2017. 2018 we had a really good year. I took him from a certain income level to 3 times that, and from an efficiency perspective, I had the company properly positioned to really grow in 2019 and 20. Unfortunately, he came down with cancer, and
I'm sorry.
And that actually was what led into the Terry J. Fairon Foundation, my nonprofit, my 501c3.
Wow.
Because he passed so quickly, it was a shock. But that America's Funding Group was an incubation for him, and obviously, I my whole career had been in finance and incubation and software, so I was able to quickly get him up to numbers and build a team around him, and use some of the successful succession programs that I'd used at loannow.com, growing that to over 250 employees and whatnot. We were very much about structure, and I emulated Enterprise Rent-A-Car a lot in terms of our recruiting, talent acquisition, onboarding, training, and then what I called sales succession. So to become a sales professional in our organization, you literally had to go through every rank, just like the military. And if you didn't go through that, you never became that, right? So it was very, very structured. And that's, I think, what compelled this company to buy us, actually, because the company was worthless in 2006.
Well, at this point in your career, you've actually went through the process of hiring and scaling companies a lot. So tell me more about your hiring process. How do you approach hiring, and especially when you're scaling these companies?
Well, for me, there's two mindsets, right? So for me, there's 3 buckets that I tend to, my brain tends to gravitate to, right? Sales and marketing. Yeah, my brother passing while what I call incubating America's Funding Group. And I was going to lead into a global DeFi platform. So I wanted to start off grassroots, back what I knew, build the infrastructure, rebuild the relationships with the lending industry in itself, and then start to gravitate to more of a back at the time, there was Bitcoin and there was ETH. And I was just scratching the surface of understanding what Bitcoin was back in 2017 and 18. But I was so focused on helping my brother and America's Funding Group grow. I put all my energy into AFG, and we hit numbers within 36 months of incorporation, which in California is kind of a pain in the butt because you're dealing with both the state as a DRE, and then you're also dealing with the National Mortgage Licensing Service. So there's all that licensing that took a little extra time, but it was really a matter of setting up an infrastructure for my brother to be very, very successful and not have to work as hard. So building the team around him and getting him to numbers was my primary goal. And then he got sick, and then he passed in August of 2019.
I'm sorry.
But thanks. About 4 or 5 months before COVID, but it happened, and I ended up shutting it down when he passed because it was too hard to even.
Yeah.
I think think through that process. So, and then we got locked down with COVID. I went down deep rabbit holes and stuff, and really went down the Web3 blockchain smart contract rabbit hole, and got sucked in. And since 2001, I've been building ever since.
Yeah. So tell me about that 501c3 that you built.
Thank you. Yeah. So when my brother passed, I wanted to set up a 501, and I've done multiple 501c3 boards. I helped my daughter with her nonprofit, which does a lot of high school and junior high education about sexual assault awareness and being aware and educating children on how to protect each other and protect each other. So very successful nonprofit. Help them incubate that, get it, and push it off, and then my daughter and the board took over, and I was able to walk away. But when my brother passed, I wanted to start something for entrepreneurs that were sole proprietors that came down with cancer, that there would be this kind of funding mechanism, this crowdfund type of environment. But I wanted to do something for him and
of course,
help people with free services, education, anything that has to do with real estate in general, because that's what my brother's passion was at the time. And that's what it is today. I mean, we're positioning ourselves for the tsunami of foreclosures that are coming, to offer free services to help people, try to save their home and just guide them through that process of hardship that I've been through like 3 times now. So it's coming. The dollar's, in my opinion, failing, and that's why prices are so high, because the value of the U.S. petrodollar is pretty much.
And what kind of guidance does the 501c3 provide for those individuals who might be going through this situation?
So now with AI, it's even more attainable to do real numbers, because I think once you understand loss mitigation, and you've been in the front lines and you've helped so many first-time home buyers. So as in my younger career, I've established relationships where I've done, loans for them and then their kids. And believe it or not, Terry and I had done a loan for a grandchild of clients of mine back from the 90s. So you build these long-term relationships with people. So when 2007 financial crisis bomb went off, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of clients that we had worked with over the years. So that's kind of what got me into the law industry, and I started building law builds in terms of process. I was very intimate with loss mitigation. And that's why, the Manning Law Office, I helped them create their entire ERP legal infrastructure to help consumers through bad debt. And now they've grown to, they help American Disability Act victims and different things like that. Great law firm.
You created a particular platform for them. So what are the key things that were on the platform that had to be on there to basically accommodate what that law firm was trying to achieve, and basically with the processes?
Yeah, I think when you look at the legal process, paralegals, the attorney, that relationship, and just litigation in general, it's not too far off of what you would experience on the finance side when you're dealing with volume. So a lot of attorneys get stuck at a certain caseload because of the complexity. So my systems and processes enable to define those processes, give the proper
Okay.
KPIs to the attorneys and to the senior paralegals to make sure everyone's very efficient in their duties and roles and responsibilities. So my ERP really is that accountability, but not only that, it gives that infrastructure for some of these complicated cases where there's so many moving parts and different players involved. So it's just an enterprise resource platform for law, very specifically for
It's
this particular
nuanced.
law. Yeah, it's very nuanced. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do multiple things. So the system has to be able to be dynamic in the sense to work different types of cases, in other words.
So not all individuals here on that are the viewers on the podcast are primarily understanding the law space and kind of those processes. So what was the industry standard before that, and why was this platform so important?
Well, I think when you're dealing with debt, bad debt specifically, there's a level of liability and people need help, legal help. Certainly here in our current judicial system and in the court systems and whatnot. So foreclosure, it hits home. People that lose their homes, it's a very emotional, traumatic event. So whatever I could do and what the law firm could do to help that process be less painful and shed light on the process so that there's no fear involved. That's what I enjoyed doing, was helping the firm articulate a process and build the infrastructure so they can service the clients the way that clients want to be serviced, even from a legal perspective, right? So I always come from that place of making sure that the end client is well informed and handled in a way that would always keep them coming back if they need help. So I just applied a lot of what I did in the early 90s and in early 2000s, in 2012, helping people out of bad debt. Didn't matter what type of debt it was. If it was bad and you needed legal representation, Manning was one of the top law firms out there that really did help individual and families from bad debt.
Love it. So a few years later, I believe that you started Lunarspace Incorporated, and I think it was 2022 you started this company. Tell me more behind the story behind why you started this company. What gap you identified, or what kind of problem you're trying to solve, and more about what it is doing today.
Well, part of my background is helping organizations out of ransom. So, and believe it or not, a law firm that I was supporting got hit with ransom. So I was able to help them out of that and get them back up and running very, very quickly. Wait, hit me up with that question again. What was the specific question?
So what was the reason you started that particular company? And was there a particular gap identified that you felt like you needed to get solved, which is why you started the company?
Was what led into Lunarspace, incorporated in 2022. Interesting story. Again, I started a deep dive during COVID into blockchain and smart contracts. And as soon as the Biden administration took over and the head of the SEC sued Ripple, which represents XRP as a token, a utility token, that really kind of started my deep dive and my hunger to find out, okay, what's going on. And that kind of led me into seeing the complexity with digital wallets and having seed phrases and wanting to abstract some of that out for SMEs, so small, mid-sized enterprises and businesses. My first project was to create a authentication wallet structure that the company can run and control, and then be able to compensate their employees via tokens, any type of token, Doge, ETH, Bitcoin, didn't matter. It was just giving organizations the ability to manage a set of wallets that they would control for their employees, so they can compensate, bonus, reward, whatnot, via cryptocurrency or tokens. So I started the company with my for my son-in-law, who married my daughter, and thank God for him. My daughter's an angel, but she is very, very strong, and it needed a certain type of human being to be with my daughter, because she's so strong. She's just a Viking woman. But anyway, my son-in-law, very brilliant, 30 years old, just incredibly sharp, and was open to learning. And I was too. We were both learning. I think, as most people were in 2021 and 2022, as crypto was exploding, right? With all that money being printed from the feds, there was just a boom. And we wanted to try to get in there, but understand that the complexity of crypto needed to be simplified, or we wanted to abstract out the complexity and create a very easy, infrastructure for an employee to be able to just log in, but yet be able to receive cryptocurrency as compensation. So we were creating a company level wallet structure, not to get too nerdy, but using a soul-bound token and then derivatives for unlimited wallets and stuff like that. But
so increasing the access to use cases for companies to compensate their employees. So tell me more about how you identified there's a change in. First, can you tell me, like, how did you understand where companies were shifting towards, where they're willing to and wanting to use cryptocurrency to compensate their employees?
Well, I think tokenization, my deep dive, learning about Ripple, and Ripple as an organization has the token XRP. And Ripple, since the lawsuit, has signed up pretty much all the major finance institutions globally. So in my research, I found out that they were the plumbing for the future financial system for cross-border payments. So when you can send, $100 million of XRP within 30 seconds and cost you a few $1,000s, you compare that to the current fiat system under the central banking with the fiat petrodollar, there's no comparison. So I knew in my heart we needed to create a platform where we can take the stress away from the owner, abstract the complexity, but give them that infrastructure, that technology. When I think when things switch, we'll be farther ahead, I think, than most other organizations, other than the very big guys, for the smaller companies to be able to create the infrastructure for them to be able to compensate and receive crypto as payment, but yet not have the stress of the seed phrase and whatnot. So we're abstracting the complexity of blockchain crypto, but yet giving those facilities to organizations.
So what is your perspective on how this market will shift towards using cryptocurrency as payment systems? What is your perspective on that, and what's your prediction?
Oh, it's inevitable. I mean, it's all you have to do is look at you look at the level of debt globally, and then you look at the derivatives, and you look at what's going on right now in the bond market. In my humble opinion, the current global currency is going to break, and it's just a matter of time. I don't think it's no longer if, it's what event triggers the ultimate failure of the U.S. fiat petrodollar that was taken off the basis of gold a long time ago, as you know. And that's what creates this inflationary environment where most people don't realize, but inflation kills economies. It kills global economies. It's killing everything.
Well, you're ahead of the curve, but what kind of event do you think needs to happen for this to occur?
I don't know. I think it's going to be when ultimately there's so much debt that it's unfathomable to figure out how to repay, right? So normally you mess with the banks, they bring the tanks. So, but this current administration seems to be doing a good job telling everyone to put their guns down and stop, and they're doing it. And just even with Saudi, this last few days with Saudi Arabia and them, committing to F-35s and just being very in tune to what's going on globally. That's where my mind sits, and that's where I see the utility of blockchain and smart contracts are going to come in, because it's going to remove the friction of the flow of money, and it's going to make it so inexpensive that you could not survive unless you have it embedded in your organization. And it's coming quick too. AI and wallet structures and abstracting that complexity is happening overnight.
In the United Arab Emirates, I think a lot of this is becoming far more accepted. Cryptocurrency is becoming far more accepted. United Arab Emirates and other people, B2B services, they do a lot of business between the UAE and other countries. So this is where I think we're heading towards, but you'll be very ahead of the curve. And when that universal event happens, it's going to become a burning hot market. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that happens. You were saying something?
Well, no, I just, you mentioned about, health and wellness. So our company, Lunarspace, and my son-in-law, who's my co-founder and partner, we're working with a group, one of the OGs of fitness, health, and certified trainers. We're building a health and wellness fitness app that has decentralization for some of the more intimate information that you put into the app. but also the gamification of getting healthy. So we're creating this model for heart health and health, and then we're adding a reward system via tokens. So as people use the fitness app and they manage their health through our fitness app that we're building, they're earning actual tokens that they can exchange for, protein shakes at Mother's, the health kitchen,
Okay.
or
Wow.
they can buy Nike shoes, whatever. But we're gamifying health behind very specific LLMs, large language models, that learn the individual, and then through our algorithms help them, guide them through this journey of getting healthy and either losing weight or putting weight on. If you're a young man and you want to add muscle to 15, 20 pounds of muscle, whatever your goals are, this platform is going to enable you to do that. And we're injecting DeFi, we're injecting decentralization in terms of HIPAA and whatnot. So it's going to be it's a fascinating project. It's one of our first clients that's hired Lunarspace to create their SaaS app, and using some of our infrastructure in terms of tokenization and utility.
Love it. So what we'll do now is shift the conversation to a little bit more about you, Patrick. And the first question I have for you is, what is something about your life that you wish more people knew about?
That I wish what?
That you wish more people knew about you.
Oh gosh, I don't really care. But I'll tell you what I'm passionate about is obviously my kids. I've been married for 33 years to a wonderful, beautiful woman, and she gave me 4 amazing adult children that's our life, right? So we're kind of going through that empty nesting phase right now. So for me, that's probably the most difficult thing I've had to go through, is really that kind of loss of your kids becoming adults, and just that whole thing. They all owe me 4 grandchildren. So I'm anticipating 16 grandchildren. I'm building an army. But so for me, it's family. It's family, faith, and, just trying to, be a better person. But yeah, for me personally, it's not about that. I'm not really on socials too much. I'm on X just to see the news. But yeah, my kids are everything to me. And
can you describe the 20-year-old version of yourself?
Oh gosh, right before I started my career, I would say just very aggressive. I surfed, I worked out, and I worked. And that's all I did. So for 18, 19, and 20, when I started my career, I was just working and just kind of being on my own. My dad had taken off. His life goal was to sail around the world, and he was a captain. He's a sailor. He loved the ocean. We were raised going to Catalina every weekend, or every so many weekends, and abalone diver and all that good stuff. So very, very much an ocean man. So he took off when I was 20 for 10 years with his wife, my stepmom. And so me and my younger brother, we're just, as always, we were on our own and just doing our own thing. But 20-year-old Patrick was just, just kind of I hate to say meathead, but, post-football player. I loved surfing and loved lifting and bartending and bouncing and just, getting into trouble.
Are you similar to that 20-year-old version of yourself by principle?
Oh yeah. Yeah. My dad was hardcore. Your word was your bond. If without your word, you have nothing as a man. So for me, and raising my 3 sons, I have a daughter and 3 sons, character, I don't think ever goes away. I think you either commit to it or you don't. Right. So you either live by a certain code and a certain word, or you don't. And so for me, 20-year-old Patrick, or Patrick at, 50, 56 years old, it's the same dude.
What we'll do now is I'm going to share a quick perspective regarding fitness and health, and then move the conversation to a little bit more about your next year plans. The primary perspective I really want to share today is really regarding, how to rethink making a physical transformation. A lot of, as you know, Patrick, the people who watch my podcast are executives and entrepreneurs across the globe. So really the most relevant kind of advice I could give today is really rethinking how you make a fitness transformation, because the traditional model and the traditional approach is very location dependent, right? Which you have to go to the gym, you have to go to the studio, and that kind of limits the options for individuals who are working all the time, who are traveling, and who are actually, trying to bring an idea forward. So how I would say rethinking it is really starting with the requirements. When you identify the primary requirements of physical transformation, it's really a negative energy balance, which means the right amount of movement, and the right amount of calories. If you have those two in, those are the basic requirements. Out of these two, what takes the time though? It's the movement. So how can you do that in the most time efficient way possible? You have to leverage something that's location independent as opposed to location dependent. Because the other perspective I have to offer is that if you focus on a location dependent approach, when you can't go to the gym, when you can't go to the studio, you're costing yourself progress. On the other side, if you focus on location independent approach, something you can do anytime, anywhere, of course, then you are not costing yourself progress because it's adaptable to where you go. So the primary movement I'd recommend is something like step count, right? Because step count you can do while you're listening to this podcast, while you're taking a business call, while you're negotiating on the phone. You can close a business deal and do the very thing that's responsible for your physical transformation at the exact same time if you prioritize this approach of location independent. And this is exactly what I even use to lose over 70 pounds and keep it off. So hopefully this actually added value by providing a perspective that you don't have to follow the traditional model, but rather identify the core requirements and then come up with a different pathway that adheres to your lifestyle with adhering to the requirements. So hopefully that was viable. What we'll do now is shift the conversation to more about Patrick's next year plans.
Yeah, I mean, I love your transformation. I mean, I being married and happy with 4 kids, or I got very overweight.
Okay.
I think my highest was 295 or close to 300 pounds at 6'3", which I was, thick. And it wasn't, to your point, for most of my career, me and my brothers would play pickup basketball. So that was my thing, right? Yeah. And because I was able to have that structure, and I was the owner of the company, I could give myself 11 to 1 or 11 to 2 every day, and that was my time for myself. And I was able to drop the weight a little bit. But what really helped me more than anything was intermittent fasting. I think once I stopped filling myself with all this unnecessary fake calories, and sticking to much more of a carnivore type, high fat, believe it or not, love avocados, almonds, I went from that to where I'm at right now, which is about 230. It's my comfortable rate at 6'3".
Okay.
But yeah, to your point, I think, and that's one of the exciting things about Lunarspace and what we're building right now with this fitness app is it is exactly that, right? It does emphasize, it doesn't matter if you're at the Marriott Hotel, you can do this in your room, or at your home office, you can do this on your, right next to your desk. Or if you have the ability to get to a gym and you have the Smith machines and all the other devices that you would want to work out with, whatever excited you. But what I love about this fitness app that we're building, it's science-based, and it really focuses on the health of your heart, right? So we're developing this algorithm with AI to really look at the heart and how we can improve the health of the heart, and with the improvement of the heart, and the easier you are to spread blood, through your whole system, typically the healthier you are, right? So it's very science-based. It's over 30 years of real data, real research, real people being saved through this health protocol. So for me, I love it because it's got everything. It's got software, it's got tokens, it's got crypto, it's got decentralization, but with a focus and obviously AI, but a focus on the individual and their heart health, and creating a score numerically so that as they either progress or regress, that score, through in the software world, it's called microservices, but all the devices, the different rings, and the different ways of your BPMs, your true heart rate, being able to record that as you're working out is a very important thing. So we're bringing all of that together under a Microsoft ecosystem. So it's an enterprise level. It's going to be an HR play. It's going to be this ability to give all your employees access to this health and wellness fitness app, and obviously healthier employees, typically a better company, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we conclude, where can people learn more about you and the initiatives you're taking?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is I think where most of us Gen Xers and Boomers tend to be. But yeah, so Lunarspace is our website, lunarspace.io. We have multiple products coming out. We have a DeFi exchange coming out with our dzones.space, which we'll be announcing on the website. that you'll be able to exchange any type of token for whatever type of token and have very, very, very minimal gas fees, and have the ability to open up like a decentralized Dropbox in the same platform, so you can have decentralized storage and not worry about Big Brother scraping your data. So we're putting out some consumer direct products like that people I think might gravitate if we make it easy to use. If it's complicated, they're not going to use it. So we're abstracting the seed phrase and creating this whole mechanism to where, normal people who want decentralization, they want to take advantage of this crypto market, but that stress over that seed phrase, we're removing that complexity.
Okay, excellent. And Patrick, thank you for joining the podcast. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This was Aryan Mohindra and Patrick Fairon. Thank you for listening.